Welcome to Savvy, Booked, and Blessed, a podcast for bold female leaders making bold moves. I'm your host, Devonay Thaxton, founder and CEO of ProSavvy Strategic Performance Agency. Stick around to the end of the show and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest. So let's get started. Today, I'm here with Denise Michelle, and Denise Michelle is the SelfLove Alchemist, a certified transformational life coach, rapid transformation hypnotherapist, #1 international best-selling author and creator of HypnoHealing, Think and Grow Rich instructor, and self-love expert with a background in the healing arts and spiritual entrepreneurship. Hi, Denise.
Hi, how are you?
Great. How are you doing?
That's a big deep breath when you're sharing all of that. I'm like, that's a lot of syllables.
That's great. I can't wait to get into all of it because I have 500 questions. Not really, but
I like questions.
Yeah, I'm super excited. So tell us a little bit more about you and all the things that we just rattled off, but tell us just a little bit more about what you do.
Sure, of course. So yes, I am the SelfLove Alchemist. That's my branding, I guess you can say. The Alchemist is my favorite book. And I've basically just taken everything that I have learned in the world of healing and entrepreneurship and spirituality that I've studied over the last 20 years. And I just kind of blended it all together at this point. And so this is how HypnoHealing was created and how, my branding of the SelfLove Alchemist was created. And everything I do is based around self-love, self-care, and self-healing. So, I don't do small talk. We go deep. I like to go and love to go deep with people because you know what? We are full of depth. And I want to know who you are, and typically, our authenticity can only come out by going deeper. Yeah. So I deal, when it comes to my clients are typically healers, spiritual entrepreneurs, or influencers. And I like to say that they're spiritual warriors. Sure. And they are people here on this planet to be in service. Yeah. And the only way that they can really, truly serve authentically is if they go in. Yeah. And get to the other side of the stuff, right? The healing, the trauma, the limiting beliefs, all that stuff. And then what you get from there is true creation.
Yeah. So you mean we need to fix those things, limited beliefs, traumas, all that stuff, to be our optimal self.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't typically use the word fix because I don't want people to think they're broken.
Yeah.
That's a big one, right? I want people to know that this is typically generational and ancestral. And it's programming. Yeah. This is a lot of it's programming. So whether it's been programmed in our DNA from the time that we were in our mother's womb, from what's been passed down generationally, or what we have learned in today's society, of being a certain way because that's what's expected of us. Right. So it's the deprogramming process.
Yeah, totally speaking my language. I talk so often with friends and family of what we're struggling with now. Yes, a percentage is self-inflicted. And I say that super lightly, but a lot of it is dealing with stuff I wasn't even born for, like things that traveled down my DNA through what I always grew up calling it was just generational curses or generational issues that it's like, crap, like I am prone to X behavior. So how can I manage that, deal with that or whatever, so it doesn't stop me from being awesome.
Right. Yeah. And it's breaking the cycle, right? Because it does, it gets passed down, and people often hear it in terms of, oh, it runs in the family. Right. And I'm like, yeah, and
autonomy and some life choices and some decisions you can make. Yeah. So tell me a little bit more, and I'm like super curious about the hypnotherapy.
Yeah. Well, okay. So when it comes to our subconscious, right, I want you to think of like an iceberg, and at what you can see of the iceberg is 10% of the actual iceberg, right? And then below that, you have this huge sheet of ice underneath the water, right? And it's massive.
Yeah.
Well, you can kind of think about our consciousness, our conscious and subconscious mind as that. 10% is our conscious mind. 90% is our subconscious mind, and our subconscious mind is truly what's driving the ship. This is why you react and respond the way you do. This is why you make the decisions that you make. This is why you feel the things you feel. And it's all happening in the subconscious. And from the time that we are created, and I'm even saying when we're being developed in the womb, right, we are starting to take these things on in our subconscious, because your issues live in your tissues. All this stuff lives in your body, right? And unless it's processed, learned to be processed and released out of you, it gets stored in you.
Yeah.
So the subconscious is huge. People can't necessarily understand why they have addictions, right? Whether it be an addiction to drugs, alcohol, food, relationships, certain kind of toxicity, why I'm addicted to social media, why I'm addicted to, working out.
Sure.
All of these things. Addiction can literally be anything. I used to be addicted to surfing, right? I was checking out of my life. So that's the thing, is that it's because of these, our subconscious core beliefs, that we are operating the way that we're operating. So, well, the question is, okay, how do I change that? How do I change a channel?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And it really starts with awareness.
Yeah. So during these sessions, and I'm going to be goofy for a second. Are we sitting in a chair with, what is it, like the black and white spinny thing, or like, a clock sliding back and forth? And, I have done a little bit of hypnotherapy long time ago, and it was super interesting. But it was more of like a silly thing, not necessarily serious, not necessarily
like for entertainment.
Exactly. Not healing work, not like anything like that. So just curious of like how that shows up in your sessions.
Yeah. So in my sessions, they will typically show up. So I actually have a 5-week program that I take people through, because I combine coaching with hypnotherapy. Because for me, that was the most efficient for the kind of people that I serve. Doing one-off sessions wasn't enough. So typically during this 5 weeks, you do have one long hypnotherapy session, which is actually about 3 hours long. So you're under for 3 hours. And I don't use a clock. I don't, nothing like that. Everything is actually done over Zoom. I don't see clients in person. After, through the pandemic, everything changed. So, and this is just as effective, and it's really, really powerful. And so it's just a matter of allowing your subconscious mind to be open to the possibilities. And I always have a primer hypnosis that I send them, so that they actually open that part of their brain that's resisting, right? I prepare them. I prepare their bodies. I even tell them, 48 hours before we meet, eat this kind of food, or, like cut this out, because I want their channels to be open. I want to be able to go and flow freely through their system to find the root cause of whatever it is that they're coming to me for.
Yeah.
Right. So, for example, a recent client came to me because she was having a really big problem feeling valued, and going into her session, oh my gosh, it was so deep. And we did everything from like cord cutting and, facing family members that had really, really hurt her, going all the way into the depths of like, the root causes of her relationships and why they were turning out the way they were turning out. And the oldest memory for her came up as between 5 and 6 years old. Sometimes it goes back to the womb. Sometimes it goes back into past life. But it really depends, because, when we're dealing with, these issues, we tend to create them as protective layers on ourselves.
Right.
And what I do is I break through that.
Yeah.
So then they can see where it came from. We process it right there, and then we transform it. And with that transformation, I actually create a personalized recording, and they listen to that every day for the next 21 days.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
To continue that.
Yeah, because you have to override, right? You're creating a new neurological pathway. You're creating a new system in your brain,
right,
so that you're no longer triggered by what was being triggered.
Yeah.
It's like a computer system, you know?
Right. This is so cool. I'm super
it's
super
cool.
into it. I love it. I think also, similarly, if I'm correct, just like, doing research and stuff, that you are also a Reiki healer as well.
Yeah,
and I am super interested too in, I am not a professional by any means, but also how connecting in that way and channeling energy that's in your body and even living outside of your body in kind of a little bit of a space from your body, and how connecting and challenging that and reprogramming some of that is also super important.
Yeah. Well, like in my sessions, is that what you're asking? How I use that? Yeah. So I always turn my Reiki on before I do my healing sessions as an extra layer of love, and what's great about Reiki is it can be done remotely. And so they don't necessarily know that it's turned on, but it's turned on. And even as as a former yoga teacher, I would turn it on during class, and just give them that extra support. And that's even where where sound healing comes in too, because, when I'm making their recordings, I choose a certain song with a certain frequency that's in the background while they're hearing my voice. And my voice is also at a certain tonal range as well. Like I know obviously how to really use my throat chakra. That it penetrates them. Right. It can really penetrate deeply into their subconscious. So then they're going through that reprogramming process. Yeah, definitely. It's a lot. There's a lot of moving parts to it. It seems like, it's just, and I'm like, not really, like not the way I do it, at least. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's, I think also we've been programmed in so many ways, but just thinking of healing in general, I grew up Christian. And so there's that box, if you will, that you can bust open the top. And that's kind of what I've done and expanded a lot. And so having a pairing of all of this and understanding that, like you can talk about that one spot, but it, like you were saying, it's in the blood, it's in the DNA, it's in the space that's around you. And I don't know, my opinion is like, why not use everything you can to get you to feeling X or doing whatever that's just not serving you. Yeah. And that's the thing. I think that's what people really, I really want people to understand that, there are so many different healing modalities out there. I mean, and people question, which one should I try? Or, where should I go? And it's, finding the ones that are resonant for you. Yeah. That's really, really important. And so in my work, I tend to bring a lot of tools in because one thing may not work for another person, and that's okay, but this is why I'm such a nerd. You're probably the same way. Just I study all the time because I'm so fascinated. So whether it's I'm studying relationships or whether I'm studying subconscious work or, studying business or spirituality or whatever it is, and I bring it all in because I think it's all relevant, Right. Absolutely. So, okay, I'm going to change gears a little bit because I could talk about this all day, but I do want to hear about your book. Tell us a little bit more about your book. Okay. Yeah. My book. I love my book so much. Asian Women Who Boss Up. This was a collaborative book, my first book. And it's an international bestseller, #1. That was like, whoa, holy moly for my first book. Right. Yeah. And what I love about this book so much is that it's reaching a demographic of women that kind of have been under the radar, in a lot of ways. So, we've been seeing in the last 20 months, Asian people being more in the spotlight in a negative way.
Yeah.
And there's been, and this book came out at the perfect time. It really did, because what we have done as Asian women, I'm half Filipino, is these are all women who have forged our own paths. We're all entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And we go so deep in that book. There are 7 and 8 figure earners who lost it all, people
Sure.
who have breast cancer, drug addicts. I talk about my bouts with mental illness and how I healed it, and starting a yoga studio from nothing. Like, our stories are really raw, and we're here to inspire and empower, the Asian community. I mean, this is obviously for anyone, but this was really special for Asian women. This was, and especially for like my mom, because my mom was Filipino. I don't know if I had shared this with you actually. Like, so my mom got to see the cover of the book, but she never actually got to see the book because she passed away last December from COVID.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
So yeah, that was, so I look at this book as like, like, this is for mom. Every time I look at that book, I think of her.
Yeah.
I know she was just so proud of like me embracing my heritage in this way, and, wanting to share with our culture.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's something so special. And I think we can relate in this way of just having something where you feel seen, as women of color, and not being, our stories not being shared, or us, brought to the table, or whatever it is. There's definitely something so incredibly special of other people just seeing themselves, feeling heard, like, oh man, that's my story too. Or I know someone who's gone through something like that, or it's not just me, like how beautiful and powerful it is. And also like how simple. And by that, I mean, like, it doesn't need to be such a grand thing just to be able to have access to share our stories, because they matter.
No, and that's a really big thing. And that's oftentimes, whether I'm doing healing work, coaching work, whatever, just even talking to people just want to be seen. People
Right.
just want to feel heard,
Right.
and that would solve so many problems if we could rise into that. But the issue with it is that there's so much childhood wounding and, stuff, addictions and cycles and behavioral stuff that people just haven't dealt with. But if you really look at the way that people fight with each other, they're not fighting with each other as adults. Those are their children. Those are their inner children,
Right.
that haven't been heard or seen or loved or accepted.
Yeah, definitely. Right. You mentioned earlier that I just kind of wanted to bring up, because I actually heard this term from a friend recently about doing like cord cutting work. And I know that's some serious work. Can you explain just a little bit more about?
Yeah. So cords, they're energetic cords. And these, I actually do cord cutting every day because of my line of work.
Sure.
Imagine, people, I'm an empath, so I tend to absorb people's energy. So I actually use crystals and tools to help protect my own energy.
Yeah.
But with cord cutting, it's, I want you to think about the umbilical cord. Right? That's attached to your mama, right? That's attached to the placenta. And then, what is all of that anyway? Well, the entire body is made up of very small cells. It's all energy.
Yeah.
Right? So it's no wonder why maybe you feel certain things that you're like, I don't think that's mine. Right? And you start to notice, you know what, that's a lot how like my mom reacts when she's mad, or, or that's how my dad is, or that's how my grandmother was.
Yeah.
Guess what? All those cords are attached to you. So oftentimes when I'm doing the cord cutting in the hypno session, I'm taking them and I have them tell me like how many cords you see. Sometimes people are like, I see thousands. And I'm like, yeah, you're old. Like you're old. You got an old soul, and it's
Yeah,
totally
right.
understandable. And then we actually I have a process that I help them release those cords,
Yeah.
transmute those cords and release and really come into a place of love and light.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without feeling tethered or swayed or, as these cords are moving, we're just kind of,
Well, yeah, and that's the thing too. Like the first time that I had done a cord cutting with my mother, this is a few years ago, and I was terrified to let go of the last cord. And I was in a hypnotherapy session being given to me,
yeah.
and she said, why are you afraid? And I started crying. I was bawling, and I said, because then she's going to be alone. I was protecting her.
Yeah.
I didn't even know, right?
And how long have you been doing that your whole life? Or how's that shown up, right? I'm the therapist now. How long have you been doing that? I'm just kidding.
Right. Well, that's what you got to ask yourself, right? That's
Right.
the question. You start looking back and you're like, whoa, that's so true. Like, that's not my stuff.
Right.
That is not my stuff. Why am I holding on to this? Why do I feel so obligated?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And you look at something like that. And for me, I was able to free myself and my mom.
Yeah. Yeah. And what that work does, yes, you're doing that work within yourself, but also they're tied to you. So looking on the other side of the cord, or the other situation, it's like once the healing that happens with them, once you take the first step to maybe release them, and
Yeah. Well, it's creating an autonomy for both of you.
yeah, right.
Right. We need that freedom. We need that freedom. And it's a big trust process. I mean, obviously I couldn't do my mom's inner work for her, but I
Right.
could do my work around my mom.
Yeah.
I could do my own inner work around my mom. And so, for me, I feel really grateful because when she did pass, it was scary, to she got diagnosed with COVID. She got it in the hospital. It took a week and we didn't know which way it was going to go. This was terrifying. I didn't get to see her. I didn't get, I wasn't there with her. And I didn't have that process that you would want with your loved one.
Right.
And I had to really go in with this. And I came to a point where I was at a crossroads and I was like, angry. I felt like the last remnants of the 7 years of deep inner work I had done around my mama trauma is what I call it.
Yeah, sure.
That this was it. And so I processed all weekend. And then Monday she calls and says, hey, can you bring me some stuff to the hospital? Yeah, of course. And I just felt very called to write her a letter in that moment. And I do not remember what I wrote in that letter. All I knew was that it was clearing the path for whatever direction this was meant to go. And I said, either, she'll survive this and she'll whatever, or like whatever. I said, but regardless, we have come into completion.
Yeah.
And it was so trippy because that was the last, thing that she got to read of mine. And, she cried and she called me. And that was the last time I got to have like a coherent conversation with her.
Right.
And so when she did actually pass away, I felt complete. Like, but then my sisters, for example, had a lot of stuff that they hadn't dealt with. Right. So,
right. And, praise be, you were able to do some of that work, ahead of time, and you're able to be at that place. And I think also being ready to, my friend and I call it, being open to receive downloads, right? So like when they happen in that moment, you're like, yep, I heard it. Yep, I'm going to do that. Right. And so being open and, again, I don't want to say like healed enough, but being open and aware enough to be able to be like, oh, and being tapped in, to be able to do that. So
yeah, it's important. And that's the thing is that, now I have been, I didn't expect to have to be a specialist in grief, but over a period of 1 year and 12 months, I actually lost 5 beings in my life, including my mom, my dog, my grandfather, 2 of my aunts, my dad almost died of COVID. It was, and this is how I spent my whole year. Like, I'm just now coming out of all of this and rebuilding myself. And now I'm really talking about it. I'm talking about grief. I'm really having these deep conversations, whether, however they're showing up on podcasts or with people and whatnot, because if we really think about it, our lives are really based on love and loss.
Yeah.
Right. And we're grieving all the time. We just don't know it or realize it. And so whether it's growing from an old version of yourself to a new version, it's something more visible to you, like changing jobs or changing apartments or homes or whatever, changing relationships, getting married, like all of these transformations create grief.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Right. But then also create opportunities for birth.
Absolutely. 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 Yeah. But we have to go through the grief process.
Yeah,
right. And there's no people are saying there's 5 stages of grief. I mean, yeah, but it's not what you think it is. It's like, it comes at any time. It comes, you can have this and this, and this swoops in, or it could be, something completely, out of there's so many great things have been happening lately. And I just remember saying to my sister really recently, I was like, but you know what, with all these great things happening and all these opportunities coming through, I said, I would give it all up for one more day with mom.
Of course.
And then she was like, yeah, that's your bargaining. And I was like, I know, the bargaining came up. It just did. Right.
Yeah.
Whew. I know, girl.
I guess I'm just a little speechless, and just feeling you through the screen and understanding, or I guess connecting in what a freaking journey you've been on the last year of just COVID in general, but also people who do spiritual work, who are open in that space, who are, it's a lot of it doesn't belong to you, like you mentioned earlier. And so being able to protect yourself from a lot of those things, but also how it's, I don't want to say heavier, but how it's just different when things are happening to you, and how to manage that and other people and where they're at and doing your job,
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of it was honestly slowing down and not taking on as many clients, and trusting that I was supported financially, and I just learned how to scale my business a little bit differently, and take on less, but create more value. And so I would, take one-on-one and VIP clients only. And now I'm moving back into groups and kind of things like that. But looking at that and honestly, it's a lot of self-care and it's a lot of grace. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of grace, because the days that I couldn't barely get out of bed, I literally had to visualize my feet touching the floor so I could get out of bed, because I was spiraling, after mom died, I was spiraling. There were just it was well, what can I do today? Well, I can take a shower today and I can feed myself. Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it is I couldn't think. Netflix was my best friend. It had to be. That was the only thing, or going for walks with my dog at the time. And I wasn't with my family. I couldn't be with my family because of COVID. So I had to grieve my mom by myself. So, when we look at, and this is why it's so, so important to yes, do our work, but also heal your stuff. Our relationships are this is why we're on this planet, is to create relationships with people, not fight with people, and not just keep projecting onto everybody. Like we want bliss. We want to feel safe. We want to feel protected. We want to feel secure. We want to feel love and compassion and all the good things, you know?
Desperately.
Desperately. Yeah.
Don't always know
Yeah.
how to get there. So if someone is listening, and they're like, Denise, please help my life. I need you. A lot of people talking about, I'm interested. How can people find you?
Yeah, so they can definitely find me on my website, which is called bridgethelove.com. And you can apply if you want to work one-on-one with me. You can apply to work with me and set up a, it's just kind of like a 15-minute intro session, and we can talk about what you're dealing with and go into in depth if we're the right fit to work together. And you can follow me on social media. Instagram is huge for me. Denise Michelle XOXO. And I put a lot of content out there. I have even like a private Facebook group called the SelfLove Tribe, and I pour content into that pretty much daily. Yeah, I mean, I put a lot out there. I just, if there's anything that I want for people, it's like I see myself radiating just love in the world, and that love comes from shining that light onto other people, and those people learning how to love themselves, and then them it's like the pay it forward, right? You start really learning these parts of yourselves, and you can start learning how to be more compassionate towards people and more empathetic and more loving and more kind. You can stop with the reactionary responses so much,
right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. It definitely took a different turn, which I'm so incredibly thankful for. And so I just want to thank you for sharing with us and being open, with us to talk about some hard things. But healing is beautiful, and it's difficult, and it's messy. And I'm just, thankful to have talked with you, and that people like you are out there doing the work.
Thank you very much for having me. It's really been a pleasure.
And thank you everyone for listening to Savvy, Booked, and Blessed. If you're a successful 6 to 7 female entrepreneur who would like to be on this program, please visit podcast.prosavvyas.com/podcast-guest. We're regularly putting out episodes and content, so make sure you don't miss out on anything, and subscribe. Chat with you later.